Hello, fifth grade. Mrs. Brand here. We are going to be looking at reducing fractions and using the greatest common factor. So hopefully we remember what the greatest common factor is. Greatest common factor is that number that both of them can be divided by. That's the largest number the numerator and denominator can be divided by. So if we look at this here, to reduce a fraction, we find a number that both the numerator and the denominator can be divided by. For example, if we have 5/10, I know I can divide 5 by 5, and I can divide 10 by 5. So when I divide 5 by 5, I get 1. And when I divide 10 by 10, or 10 by 5, I get 2. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So to simplify my fraction, to reduce it to lowest terms, I have 5/10 equals 1/2. Okay, so we're just taking and we're dividing them out. So if we can find the greatest common factor, we can save steps in trying to get it to the lowest terms. So we have 18/30 here, and we want to make it into the lowest terms that we can here. So let's see if we can figure this out. So I look at the numbers that we have. We have 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. Those are all ways to get 18. To get 30, I can do 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. I started at the 1, 2, 3, and go on up from there. Now, if you remember some of the rules for division, it'll help you to come up with that number. For example, I know that if it ends in an even number, I can divide it by 2. If I add up the digits and I get 3, 6, or 9, I can divide it by 3. If I can divide it, if it's a larger number, if I can divide it by the last two numbers and have no remainders, divided by 4 by the last two numbers without a remainder, then it can be divided by 4. If it ends in a 5 or 0, it can be divided by 5, and so on. So if you remember some of those, that'll help in figuring out your factors. So I figure out my factors, and I see which ones they have in common. They have 1, 2, 3, and 6 in common. Since 6 is the largest, we would divide by 6. So we're going to take our 18, and we're going to divide it by 6, and that's going to give us 3. I take my 30, and I divide it by 6, and I'm going to get my 5. Okay? Now the other thing, if you write out your factors like this, 1 times 18, 2 times 9, that type of thing, if I look at the facts we have there, 3 times 6, and then I also have the 5 times 6, the greatest common factors I have, the number that's left over on the other side ends up being that fraction in lowest terms. So I have 18 divided by 6 equals 3, 30 divided by 6 equals 5. Remember, this is just like dividing by 1, since 6 is the same as 1. Okay, we're just making it into the simplest terms possible, because 3/5 is a little bit easier to understand than 18/30 when we look at it. Okay? All right, let's take another example. The other thing about this is if I don't know the greatest common factor, then I can divide more than once until I get down to where I need to be. Okay, so when I look at 20/60ths, first thing that comes to my mind is 10. I can divide 20 by 10, and I can divide 60 by 10. When I divide them by 10, I get 2 on the top here, and I get 6 on the bottom. So I have 2/6. Well, now when I look at that, they're both even numbers. So if they're both even numbers, you know you can divide by what number? 2. So we're going to divide by 2. I divide by 2 and I have 1 on the top. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3 on the bottom. So my simplest terms, my lowest terms would be 1/3. So 20/60 is equal to 1/3. Now if we try to use the greatest common factor, I'll put my 20 over here and my 60 over here. I would have 1 times 20, 2 times 10. Can't do 3, can do 4 times 5. No 6s, no 7s, no 8s, no 9s. And I already have a 10, so that's my factors for 20. Over here I have 1 times 60, 2 times 30, 3 times 15. Can I do 4? Yep. 4 times, if we divide it by 4, let's see what we get. 60 divided by 4, we have 1, 20, so we get 15. Oops, I meant to do 3 times 20. Sorry about that. 3 times 20, 4 times 15. And then 5 times 12, excuse me. And we didn't do 6 times 10 yet, so we have 6 times 10. And then 12 would be our next number back up. So we're halfway down, we've got what we need. All right, so I look for the greatest, or the factors in common here. I'm going to change colors just so we can look at them and circle them in different ways here, okay? So what do we have in common? This one has a 1, this one has a 1. I'm going to write a 1 over here. I have a 2 here, I have a 2 here. I have a 4 here, I have a 4 here. I always start with the lower number and then look and see if the larger number has it, because the larger number is probably going to have different ones, but if we start with the lower, we can find it, we can figure it out. 20. Do I have a 20 over here? Yep, there's a 20. Here's a 20. That's going to be the absolute largest because my number itself is 20, but let's just do what we're doing here. 5, or I have a 10, 10, and then I have a 5, 5. So I have 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, 20. So 20 is my largest number. So if I look at what is multiplied by 20 to get each one, 20 times 3 is 60. 20 times 1 is 20. So my answer is 1/3. Okay? We can use those to try and figure out what our factor is when we reduce it. Okay? Reducing fractions are what you're doing for lesson 90. And I think that most of these types of things it'll be okay with, as long as you can think about those multiplication and division facts. I'm just going to go over a couple examples with you here. What if we have to write a percent as a reduced fraction? Reduce that to a fraction. So first of all, 60% is equal to 60 over 100. And now we want to make it down into a smaller fraction. Well, I'm going to start by dropping a 0 off. So now I'm down to 6/10 because I know they can both be divided by 10. Now, I know they can each be divided by 2 because that's an even number, that's an even number. So I divide them by 2, and then I end up with 3 on the top and 5 on the bottom. And neither one of these have a number in common. They're both prime numbers, so there's nothing left to do. So 60% as a fraction would be 3/5 in its simplest form. Okay? Let's do some multiplication of fractions and reduce them. What if we have 3/5 times, let's just do 4/4. 3/5 times 4/4. 3 times 4 is 12. 5 times 4 is 20. And if we take And when we reduce, I know I can do both of them by 4, and you're actually going to end up with that 3/5 again. Because if I divide by 4 here and I divide by 4 here, that's exactly what I just had. And we get 3/5. So it's like dividing by 1. All right, 1 or 2 more here. What if we have 19/24 minus 1/24? 19 minus 1 is 18. Remember, in this case, they always stay the same when you're adding or subtracting. So the 24 goes over here. Now I need to figure out what can I divide both of these by. When I think of my 18, I'm going to put my 18 over here, and we're going to think about what I can do. I can do 1 and 18. I can do 2 and 9. I can do 3 and 6. For 24 then, I can do 1 and 24. I can do 2 and 12. I can do 3 and 8. I can do 6 and 4. All right, so now I have all the different numbers here that I need. So now I want to figure out which one is the highest that they have in common. So I start with the highest number up top, 18. Nope, don't say an 18, so we'll cross that out. How about a 9? Do I see a 9 down here? Nope, so we cross that out. How about a 6? Do I see a 6 down here? Yep, I see a 6. So 6 is my largest common factor, my greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide both of these by 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3. And then 24 divided by 6 is 4. So 18/24 in simplest terms is 3/4. Okay? So that's the way you're going to be doing those types of things. And you have a pre-test tomorrow in math, so hopefully things will go well there. I'll see you back tomorrow to finish off this pre-test, and then we'll move on to more stuff with fractions on Friday, or Thursday, sorry.